to thank, first of all, the organizers of this wonderful conference. The first one at European level in digital humanities and theater studies. So it's a very important event. So many thanks, Antonia, Koralka, and Anne-Maria for inviting me. And I'm here with colleagues who are in my research team. So Laurence Delbar-Rullard from the University of Lille, and also Maya Larbi from La Rochelle University. So I'm going to talk to you about the research we are leading in digital humanities and theater studies, crossing not only methods and perspective with digital humanities, but also crossing methods from another discipline. Well, I didn't know basically when I was trained as a student. This discipline is cognitive sciences, and this discipline is using from a long time digital technologies to make its research. I'm going to share my screen, first of all. Okay. Thank you. Many thanks. Okay. This research is led from two projects at the moment. A project called L'École du Spectateur, Spectator School, which is founded by the Région Nouvelle-Aquitaine, the southwest of France, and also a project called Visual Staging, founded by the north of France, University of Lille. So I would like to start with first considerations about the period we are living at the research level. As you know, we are currently living what we call the digital turn, the digital revolution from the 90s. Digital technology has invaded all our human activities. We are using digital technologies all the time to take photos, for instance, to get in touch with our families, our friends. And we are also producing a huge quantity of digital documents. I did it, for instance, this morning. I took a photo of the list of participants of the workshop we had yesterday to bring it to Anna-Maria. And so I've been producing a digital document. This huge quantity of digital documents also concerns performing arts. And we are, when we see a live work, we always need, if the artists agree we take some photo, we record what we are saying, we take some photos. And I was in a rock concert in La Rochelle last week. And as you can see, everyone was recording to the singers, also taking photos. I was doing the same because we were allowed to do it. So it's so representative of this digital turn we are living in performing arts and in our society in general. So before the 90s, it was before these digital it was not complicated to do research in performing arts because we didn't have this impression, but it was, we were working mainly on written documents when I was a pupil, or when I was a student, or when I was doing my PhD, I had to work on archives, and so you can see some documents I was working on. It was archives from a Uruguayan playwright who lived in the 20th century. And I was working on tapescripts of his plays, drawings he was doing for imagining the staging of his plays, also programs. And if I was lucky in his archive, I could find tapes sometimes with his voice, as you can see on the right of the slide. Sometimes sound recording of a performance of a play. I think, but I'm not sure, somewhere there are some VHS video of one of his last representation in 1983, but I'm not sure. I haven't found it already. What was difficult to me at that time, but I'm not the only one, it was the case of all researchers and also for teachers at secondary school, for instance. It was difficult to imagine how was the live show. And also to detect what we call performative elements or performative components of the live show. It's true now, things are changes and things are changing, sorry. And nevertheless, in the 60s, with the emergence of performance art as an entire artistic discipline, named as such, we could, in research, realize that a theoretical slippage was happening from theater studies to performance studies. So that was a time, you know it, when a new concept of art was emerging with the idea of the engaged art, promoted by philosophers such as Jean-Paul Sartre. So art is political, art is action, and art can change the world. So the idea was to show directly that art in its run, in its realization, could change the world, and the performance art or performances were a good example of the effect that could produces art in the audience, in the people. Actually, I don't know what it is in Croatia, but this theoretical slippage hasn't really concerned at the beginning the French theater studies. So my colleagues who are involved in research in North American or English theater were quite used to use the theories from the performance studies developed by Richard Schechner or Victor Turner, more from the anthropologic point of view. But in France, we were still quite using the concept from the theater studies and still working with written documents and using more and more the video for our research, but not that much, even if there was from the 60s an important and increasing development of video recordings, first with the Super 8 film. Maybe you know that. My parents were using that type of video recording, and then VHS video. This epistemological turn has known an acceleration with the digital turn from the 90s. So we are talking now about a performative turn, which is a beautiful expression, I think. So as I was saying at the beginning, we are producing an important quantity of digital documents, so videos, photos, sound recordings. We are also able to digitize documents from instance from the process of the genesis of a live show, so we can digitize the notes that the actors are writing on their paper if they are using some. We can also digitize objects in 3 dimensions. Obviously, if we've got the funding, but we can do that. And mostly what is interesting and what makes the performative turn important and relevant is that we can, all those documents, either they are digital born documents, or either they are not digital born documents, we can process them with digital tools. For example, we can, for a theater company, we can analyze the network of this company. We can also annotate videos, as I will talk about it later. We can annotate videos from live shows. We can also make encoding with the text of a play. We can recreate a 3D dimension of the stage of a play. And we can make a lot of visualization of the data. So it's an important moment we are living, because even if, as I was saying, it started now like 50 years ago, it allows us more and more to use other research approaches, such as using phenomenological methods, also work more on the audience response. I'm talking about reception, appreciation of the spectators. Anthropological investigations, it means that we can work inside the company as researchers, and take part of the genesis of a live show. So we have, thanks to this new methods, we are using a better perception, I would say, I don't know if it is the right word, about performative aspects or performative components, as some theories call them. Those performative aspects can be linked with the performance. For instance, with the video or with sound recording, we can better appreciate the actors' performance, the stage design, the sound creation, the light creation, and also to have an idea of how was configured the venue where took place a performance. But it does also, those performative aspects are also connected with the idea of performativity. So what is doing, as the philosopher said, Austin said, what are doing performing arts, what are making performing arts, not only saying. So for instance, performance effects on actors, on their acting interpretation, what are the interactions and what are the interactions between actors and spectators, and to what extent those interactions can modify the live show, and also the performance effects on spectators. And that it is about performativity where we can connect with the cognitive sciences. So cognitive sciences for performing arts. As you may know, cognitive science appeared around the 60s, middle of the 60s, and there are sciences which study the mind and its processes, so how nervous system, how our brain represent and transform information that it gets from different mental faculties. Mental faculties or nervous faculties as memory, attention, reasoning, and emotions. There are different disciplines such as cognitive philosophy, neuroscience, cognitive psychology, and artificial intelligence. Also, computational linguistic, and those disciplines, mainly the ones I've highlighted, are using digital technology from the beginning. So we can, in a historical point of view, we can connect the apparition of artificial intelligence with the rise of cognitive science. So for artificial intelligence, the researchers are using digital technology to represent and try to reproduce the functioning of human mind and intelligence. In neuroscience, they can visualize how works the human brain. And in cognitive psychology, which is a discipline we are working with in our projects, the digital technologies allows researchers to reproduce different types of stimuli to the participants of their experiences. They can capture physical reactions. They can recreate human-machine interactions with digital avatars, for instance. So we thought it was interesting for analyzing performative aspects and the performativity of performing arts to apply those methods to our research and to cross not only digital humanities with theater studies, but also with cognitive sciences. So how do performing arts transform human mind? To what extent? Could that explain the interest that they arouse since the dawn of time, because we say that, but we don't really know. We can feel it, but is it a true feeling or is it a cultural construction? So that was the idea of this research from the beginning, even if we really wanted to prove that it was a reality and not just a cultural construction. So how do we work? As we are applying those methods from cognitive sciences, and in particular from cognitive psychology, we need to do some experiences. Cognitive psychology always works with experiences. So we were happy to do it, but we needed to imagining experiments from a research question in performing arts we wanted to explore. And obviously we had to recreate an experience with artists, with a live show or a piece of live show, and to measure what was happening. We had to use digital technologies, and it's not that we had to, but we had the opportunity to use materials that are available in the University of Lille from 2014 in what we call in French an équipex. It means equipment of excellence. And those equipments, there are several équipex in France, but the one in University of Lille is specialized in visual studies, and in particular in cognitive sciences. And now this équipex has integrated a more important federation of research federation called Sciences et Culture du Visuel. And we create an interdisciplinary research team. I'm really happy and pleased to work with them, because it's not only very interesting, but also we discover new methods working together, and there is a heuristic part in this research. We are very happy to discover every time. So I will mention my colleagues because I think it's important to present them. So Laurence Delbar-Willard, who is present today, from University of Lille, Maya Larbi. So Laurence is specialized in physician research and also in cognitive psychology. Maya Larbi is an engineer in computer science from La Rochelle Université. Fatia Hidmond, who was here yesterday, she's from University of Poitiers, but she's part of one project I'm leading in La Rochelle Université. She's specialized in digital humanities and in author manuscripts. Jan Coelho, he's a professor in cognitive psychology in University of Lille. He's professor. And Laurent Passion, he's a data curator, indispensable for a kind of research like that. And I'm from La Rochelle Université and specialized in Hispano-American theater studies and digital humanities. So we started to work together from 2016, so it's not a long time ago, but it was good to me to remind those moments, those first moments when we were working together. So we presented a first small project inside a bigger one. It was called CHISP project. It was a project in digital humanities for enhancing archives from Hispano-American authors, and in particular, this Uruguayan playwright I was talking about. So it was in April 2016, and the idea was to study the process of directing actors. So we organized a masterclass with like 20 or 25 participants, students from secondary school, but also adults. And a director, a theater director, was here to teach them a series of technical acting techniques. And at that time, we thought that it would be interesting to measure, as we could, the level of attention of the actors when they were playing a role, and wanted to know if it was affecting the quality of their acting. So we used a digital device called the Observer from a company, a private company. So it is a digital device because it brings you the possibility to record videos with very high quality. And after that, you can annotate the video with the criteria you want. So that was the first problem for us, because I mean, we didn't really know what was the criteria to appreciate the quality of attention of actors. We hadn't done that before, so we had to think a lot about it. So we decided all together to say that we were going to analyze when the participants were tense, when they seemed to be more relaxed, when they were watching someone with strong attention or not. And what we realized is that there is a huge difference between adults and young people. We realized that adults can be more concentrated, it's true, for a long time, but young people are, it's not that they are less concentrated, but they can mix times with very high concentration and times with relaxed moments, but during the training. So that was very interesting because we saw a clear difference between young people. There were not, there were young people from like 18 years old and adults from 25 years old. We didn't go further in this analysis because the objective of the project was more to make a state of art of the different digital tools we were able to use for analysis, to analyze the genesis of a show. But we still have the data, and maybe we will later write a paper on this experience. The second experience we did was in 2019 during a project who had received a funding from the region of the north of France. It was called visual staging, and it's currently ongoing at the moment. So the idea was to analyze the performance context and how this performance context could have an effect on the actors and change their way of acting. So the research question was, does the location affect the actor's performance? And what we did was to make the actors perform first in a conventional venue, in a municipal theater, in a small town, the north of France. And we asked them 2 days later, if I remember well, to perform the same scene in an unconventional venue. It was a laboratory in the equipex I was talking about in University of Lille. So you can see the actors who had accepted to be part of the experience. And it was interesting because what we did was to give them exactly the same size of space. So they couldn't go further in the theater hall. They had a square as a performance space, and they had to do the same twice. We used a digital device, which is called a quality system for motion capture. So what we wanted to measure, or what we decided, because we can't use several, well, we can use, but it's always complicated to use several digital tools while working in experience of this size. So it was a digital a device with for motion capture for measuring the movement of the actors. So the actors had, I don't think you can see it on the photo, but they had captors in their body. What we realized analyzing the data, and it's a paper about which is about to be published, is that in one place, the actors, it's not that they felt more confident, but they moved much more quickly in the space. And in the laboratory, they were moving really slow. So we tried, so we get that from, we got those data from the captors, and we tried to understand why. Because for them, they had done exactly the same. So we realized that for them, their environment, the fact that in the laboratory, the walls were closer to them, even if they had the same square of space, the walls were closer to them, the ceiling was also not as higher as it was in the theater hall. They clearly walked much more slowly in the laboratory, and they didn't realize it. So we made the conclusion that the space has an unconscious impact in the actors, and that they adapt their interpretation to it for them to present or to perform exactly the same play or scene every time. So for them, they are done exactly the same, but clearly it was not the same duration, it was not the same rhythm, it was not the same run, it was very different. You can see it on the graph, the graphic on the right. The blue line is their walk in the laboratory. So they felt, you can see that it's more constrained, the line, and the line in the theater is occupying much more space. The third experience we did was the experience theater emotion in 2022. So you can see that there are several years between each experience, because we need time to analyze data and to give conclusions to our analysis. So this experience we did in 2022, it has been prepared with several draft experiences before. So this one took place in La Rochelle. And it is funded by two projects, so still the project Visual Staging from the University of Lille, but also the project École du Spectateur from La Rochelle Université. And this time we decided to analyze the audience response or appreciation or reception, as you want to call it. The research question that has raised at that moment was linked with the pandemic time we had all lived, and in France, I was talking about it yesterday, the French government said that performing arts were not essential, so we didn't need them during pandemic time, and culture was not essential. So we really wanted to prove or to measure that performing arts, when they are living in live conditions, have more impact than to see a recorded show. We wanted to prove that, but we knew that maybe we couldn't. So the idea was to bring a part of the participants to see a live show in a theater of La Rochelle, the most important one. So you can see in the photo in the center that the participants were seated in with the rest of the audience. They had a tablet to declare, their emotions, as we did yesterday in the workshop. It was not exactly the same emoticons. We had changed and improved the list of emoticons we would like to propose, but they could declare their emotions on the tablets, and they were also they had also a sensorial sensors. You can see them in the photo of the top to catch the change of their state, their emotional state. And we wanted to cross what they were declaring on the tablet and the information we could get from the sensors. So there was a group attending to the live performance in the theater, and there was a group attending to the show with a recording in theater hall in my university, La Rochelle Université. And so they had the same conditions. It was just that it was not a live show. Though they had the tablet, they had the sensorial sensors also. So we are analyzing the results at the moment. So as I was saying, it's really, really long. It takes a long time to process all those data, and also to know how we are going to process those data. Sometimes we agree about how we want to use the data, sometimes we don't. So we need to take time to think about it. But what we saw, the first results we wanted to have is if the live performance had produced more reactions in spectators. And really, we saw a clear difference, even if they were in the same conditions. So it was in both cases in a theater hall, in a nice theater hall with a good sound, but clearly we can see a difference, and the audience is much more reactive to in a emotional point of view, is much more reactive to the live show, the performance in live conditions, which is really, really good. We also want to analyze with those data if there is a coincidence with what has wanted the director of the play. And so, for instance, if he wanted, oh, I would like for this moment the spectators, I want the spectators to laugh for that moment. We wanted to see if there is a coincidence of what with what he wanted to do and to provoke as reaction, and to see if the audience really react as he wanted. So that's also interesting. But this part hasn't been analyzed. Okay, so the experience 4 is the e-spectator experience we did yesterday. So in 2023, we were really, really happy to do it here in this conference. So the same projects are funding the research part of the experience, and we are still working in analysis in the audience response. The only difference from the experience we did in La Rochelle in May 2022 is that the group who was attending the performance with the video recording, as you can see on the photo down, it's that the students who kindly participate were using the tool we are developing for analyzing video of live performances. So because in May the digital tool was not, well, it's not finished, to tell the truth, it's still a prototype, but it was not developed enough to use it. So this time this part of the participants, instead of using a tablet as the group who was attending the live show in real conditions, they were using their laptop and the application we are developing. So I'm going to talk a little bit for finishing about this application we are developing in the project. We called it e-spectator for performing arts, so e-spectator. And we are going, I'm going to talk about it, not to describe it in a lot of details, but also to connect it with what we are doing in cognitive sciences. So how our work in with crossing methods with cognitive science is transforming the way we want to develop this tool. So eSpectator is a digital tool for video annotation of performing arts. We decided to work with videos because we think, even if it's not live shows, but we think that at the moment with the digital turn and the performative turn, video recording is the best trace of what has been a performance, which is ephemeral by nature. So video recording allows us to see elements we were not able to see through the written documents. Also helps the video recording helps us to remind things we had seen when we saw the show, when we attend to the show, but we had forgotten. So that was the idea of working from the video document. eSpectator, to talk about technology, is developed from an already existing tool, which is called Celluloid. It's an application, a web application, which has been created for annotating video directly on the image. Celluloid, and also it was interesting for me because it for us, sorry, mixing French and English, for us because it was an open source code, and for researchers in humanities, it's important to share our tools, what we are developing, because we don't have a lot of money, so it's important to work from open source code. And I've got to mention the two colleagues who developed this tool first, because it's important to mention them. They are Michael Bourgat and Laurent Tessier from the Institut Catholique de Paris. So from this initial code that is living his own life also, we decided to implement special features to analyze performing arts. So there are some features that there was one feature that was already existing. It was not made for analyzing performing arts, but it was interesting for us because it allows the user to annotate the video in a collective way. As performing arts is a collective experience, we thought it was a good idea to keep this functionality inside the tool because we could bring together the annotation of different people. As when we go out from a live show, we talk about what we've seen, we share the experience, our appreciation, etc. We also added new features. So we added what we call the performance mode. It's a mode where you can't stop the video. So you start seeing the video and you can't stop it. The idea is to reproduce, even if it's completely artificial, but it's to reproduce the condition of a live performance, which is that you can't stop it when you go to the theater. You can't stop it because you need to go outside. If you go outside, the performance will run, and there are very rare cases where the audience say, oh, I want this performance to be stopped because I don't like it. It never happens. So we appreciate a live performance through its run, through its historicity, and not through a final version. So the tool allows the user to use this performance mode. You can also download videos from your laptop, because when you are working in performing arts, you always have the problems with the rights, because some artists don't want you to put the video, their video online, because they don't want people to download it, to see it outside live conditions. It is the case of many French theater artists. The possibility of categorize the annotation, so we integrated, so we hadn't used it yesterday, a domain ontology specialized in performing arts. For the moment, it's quite reduced because there is no ontology in performing arts that exists already. So it's quite reduced, and we are working in our research team to build it up. So the most detailed part of the ontology is the user response or the reception and the part of emotion, and some performance components as staging, acting, and dramaturgy. So you can see in the photo at the top that you can select the word you want to use, or to the element you want to describe with a series of selects. So it's not very visible, but you can see staging, acting, and dramaturgy. Okay, here is just to show you how we work. So it's very experimental. How do you work for defining our emotions? Actually, we see plays together and we say what we feel at that moment. So we are using a Google table. And you can see that Laurence is describing her emotions, the emotion that she's feeling when she was seeing this beautiful silent theater Bigre here. And each participant has his column. After that, we put in common all the emotions we had declared. And we made a big table. And after that, we transformed it, thanks to Maya, to the RDF language. So that's the computational language, to be able to introduce the ontology to implement the ontology into the tool. We also managed to compare what we were doing in a very experimental way with what we're saying cognitive psychology about emotion, how it was categorized in this discipline. So the next step for the development of the tool is to integrate automatic detection of emotions with facial recognition. So the idea is that the tool would be able to detect automatically our emotions. It's interesting, and it comes from Croatia, to tell the truth, because it's the idea that was raised during the DARIAH summer school in Zadar last June. So it's interesting because when you declare your emotion with the emoticons, in a way, you make conscious your emotion. With a facial recognition, it is less conscious, so there is less awareness of what you are doing. It's it could raise discussion because we think that some user won't like to use it, but it's another problem we'll have to solve later. It could have an utility, but it's a question completely open for defining the job of the play. Of defining, I can't help her. For defining the genre of a play, the genre of play, and also could have utility for the artist who wants to know if the audience got angry or have felt happiness with the play. So, but there are questions that are completely open. Okay, so as a conclusion, crossing methods and perspective between theater studies and cognitive science using using digital technologies allows the creation of new knowledges. First of all, performing arts affects the mind and the thinking of the different contributors of a live show, comedian, and spectators. Performing arts and performing activity mobilize a lot of our emotion, and it is necessary to decode the effect this have on our seeing the world and acting later. And I'm also thinking about performative activities such as political speeches, for instance. Stimulating intensively our bodies and our brain, performing arts produce new neuronal connections that maybe enables us to better accept alterity. It's a question also, but and to adapt to new situations. Thank you very much.
And Cécile, thank you for this very stimulating presentation. We have 5 or 10 minutes for discussion. So if you have questions from the audience on site and questions from participants online, we are open.
I can stop sharing my screen
Okay,
if you
let's
want.
stop sharing. And I can start with the first question. Do you need help?
Yes, I think so. Just, sorry for that. Oh, yeah.
So maybe I can start with the first question. It's three questions in one question.
Okay.
So how does the use of these digital devices and tools condition the audience's perception of the performance or this emotional impact you mentioned? How can we be sure that we get valid data, and how to implement these devices in the way they do not interfere with the original experience of the performance?
Yes, it's yes, it's a question. It's not that we are not able to answer to it, but it's a question that, for instance, psychology, cognitive psychology, is not raising anymore because they consider that there is a bias because the participants already know that they are participating in an experiment. So you must think that anyway, it's not completely artificial, but it's partly artificial. That's the third thing, the first thing. I mean, and also now we could have thought, for instance, to say we are going to give you a sensorial captures and not tell them what was happening. But I don't know how it is in Croatia but in France we are not allowed now we've got to say everything to the participants. And we have also to make sure that the data will be anonymous. So what we did yesterday, we don't have any names. So I think it's important you know that. I mean, we don't have the possibility to make it as natural as it is. It's always artificial and we have this bias.
And not saying to the audience is what are you doing is a little bit in the field of research ethics.
Mm-hmm. Not saying to the audience.
No, not saying to the audience what do you want to accomplish with that research.
Oh, we do. We say it generally.
Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
we introduce it.
As
Well, we can't explain everything because
Yes.
sometimes when you work to the on the data, you are doing, I mean, following some lines you hadn't decided from the beginning, but we explained yesterday why we were doing that.
Okay, I see we have maybe one question from the Zoom audience.
Okay, Martinez.
Martinez, yes.
Yes, hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
So first of all, thank you very much for presenting your fascinating work. And I have one short question on your example number 3, when you were comparing the emotional response to the recorded and the live performance. I was just wondering about the type of the performance that it was. Was it a classical drama performance or was it an interactive kind of show? Because I think that it could create some considerable difference in response. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for your question. Actually, it was in a way a classical play with puppets, partly, but we didn't really have the choice because we had to have several conditions. So we needed an artist who was okay to participate in the experience. We needed an artist, just like Eva yesterday, it was okay to record his performance before, and sometimes it's not the case. And we needed an artist and also a theater was okay that part of the audience agree with the idea they had tablets and they could bother the other part of the spectators. So we hadn't chosen really the play we were working with, but it's true that it was the first time we were working on the audience response. And we realized that indeed we didn't get the same reactions, and we hadn't imagined they would have needed more emoticons or other emoticons to express themselves. From this experience to the one we did yesterday, we added some emoticons, we take off some of them. And yesterday, some of the participants told us that it was interesting, but they had used only 3 of the emoticons. They said that we could have put more because some of them wanted to express more. But so that's a question we hadn't answered. But it's true that it depends of what kind of live shows we are using. And also we got to take into account that some spectators, even if they are okay for participating, they are not used to express their emotions in the same way. So there are some persons that don't really express in a lot their emotions. And analyzing the data from the experience we did in May, we saw that we've got compulsive person in the tablets who wanted to share their emotions, and some participants who just clicked 10 times, so it's true. So there are questions we need to answer or to put interest on them to improve the experiences.
Yes.
Thank you.
First of all, I commend your keynote lecture. It was very informative, and thank you, Cécile. So I have a very brief 2 questions, actually, very briefly. The first regards your 2016 research. When you said something about the impact of the actors' attention on the quality of their stage performance, I would like to know what was the focus of your research, because then the result would have been different. Namely, possibility number 1 would be to focus on their attention with regard to the lines they are pronouncing. I would call it textual authenticity or textual veracity versus improvisation. B, you could have focused on actors' awareness to the audience and their attentive attitudes to it, I mean, to the audience, to the presence of the audience. Or C, the third possibility, both. I mean, their attentiveness to the audience and their veracity to the text. What was the focus?
Actually, as I was saying, the main question was to make a state of art of the different digital tools we could use for following the genesis of a live show. So when we decided to use this tool, the Observer, for annotating the behavior of the actors, we didn't really know what we wanted to do. I'm sorry to tell you that, but it was like, oh my God, we've got this tool. What are the criteria for analyze the behavior of the participant while receiving those advices from the director? So we had to make our own criteria, and I'm very sincere when I'm saying that. So it's true now with time, and maybe if the research question, the initial research question was not really was this one, I think we would have thought about it more, and that's why I was saying that we've got those data still, and we could restart the work and think more about what we want to analyze. Is it the interaction between the director and the participants? Is it the way the director is trying to connect a movement with a part of the text, and how the director teaches that to the participant and how do they react? So, I mean, it was very improvisation. Well, it's not true to say that, but it has been like, sometimes with digital technologies, oh, what I'm going to do with this tool, I'm happy to have it. And we have, it was the first time we were working together with Laurence. We had worked a lot about defining those criteria, but obviously they have to be improved.
And very briefly, the second question, when you research what was more impactful, whether it was a live performance or recorded performance, how do you interpret your results neuroscientifically? I mean, the expected result is that a live performance could be more impactful. But how do you interpret this? Is it because of the thespian mimes that could be reacted to by the live audience, or because of something else? If something else, please explain what elements have you detected in your research?
We are not at that stage of the analysis of the data, but what you must know is that the sensors, they don't give you any idea of type of emotions that the spectator is feeling. So you are only able to know it if with crossing with the data from the tablet. But the idea, it's not that we don't want to know why performing arts have more impact than the video recording, because it could have been something related with the quality of the sound, or the quality of the performance, because each performance is unique. So maybe during the live performance, the actors, I'm saying maybe something stupid, but we are more efficient. So we don't have the possibility with the data we have to know exactly what had more impact in detail. We just can see that in very similar conditions, they could have been more similar if we, it's not that if we wanted to, but if we had the opportunity. The emotional impact in the bodies and also in a conscious declaration is more important in live conditions than in recorded conditions. But it's true that when we are working together, we think, oh, but we really wanted to know if it is this interpretation of the actor that had raised such a strong reaction in all the participants, but we would have to mobilize other digital devices, maybe.
Thank you. We need to end the session.